The morning sky over New Haven Colony should have been blue. Instead, it burned red with the glow of falling ships. Una pressed her face against the command center window and watched another transport vessel crash into the distant mountains. Black smoke rose from where her people had been trying to escape. Administrator Una, the emergency broadcast is ready, called her assistant from across the room. The young Altarian's voice shook with fear. They both knew this might be their last message to the galaxy. Una walked to the communication console. Her long fingers, designed for delicate artwork rather than war, trembled as she activated the transmitter. Around her, the colony's final defenders worked frantically to maintain the shields. The bug-like Vex ships kept firing their acid weapons at the barrier, and each hit made the lights flicker. "This is Administrator Una of the Altarian colony on Kepler 442b. She spoke into the microphone. "We are under attack by the Vex swarm. Our defenses are failing. We have no military ships, no weapons that can hurt them. If anyone can hear this message, please help us. We have 20,000 civilians here, including children. The Vex are destroying everything." She paused, watching through the window as another wave of insect-shaped fighters dove toward their city. The creatures inside those ships were twice as tall as any Altarian, with sharp claws and hunger that never ended. "We cannot fight them," Una continued. "We are artists, not soldiers. We make music and paint pictures. We grow gardens and write poetry. But the Vex do not care about beauty. They only want to eat everything we have built. Please, if there is anyone out there who can help, we do not have much time." The transmission went out across all frequencies, racing through space at the speed of light. Una hoped someone would hear it, but she did not expect anyone to come. The Vex had already destroyed 3 other colonies in their system. Who would be brave enough or strong enough to face such monsters? Far away, in the empty space between stars, Captain Taman sat in his chair on the bridge of the human warship Indomitable. The ship was not the biggest in the human fleet, but it was fast and carried enough weapons to crack a small moon. Taman had been a soldier for 15 years, fighting pirates and rebels in the outer systems. He thought he had seen everything. "Captain, we're getting a distress signal," reported communications officer So Young. "It's coming from the Kepler system." "Put it on speaker," Taman ordered. The bridge fell silent as Una's voice filled the air. The human crew listened to every word. When the message ended, nobody spoke for a long moment. "The Altarians," whispered Sergeant Jiwoo. "I've heard of them. They're peaceful people. They've never hurt anyone." Taman stood up and walked to the front of the bridge. Through the main window, he could see nothing but stars and darkness. But somewhere in that darkness, innocent people were dying. "How far to Kepler 442b?" he asked. 18 hours at maximum speed," answered the navigation officer. "What about other ships? Any human vessels closer?" So Young checked her screens. "Negative, sir. We're the only human ship in this sector." Chief Engineer Hyun-sik spoke up from his station. "Captain, the Vex swarm is bad news. Intelligence reports say they travel in huge numbers. Hundreds of ships, maybe thousands. They eat everything organic and use it to make more ships." "How many ships do we have, Engineer?" "Just us, sir." "1 ship." Taman looked around the bridge at his crew. He saw fear in some faces, but also determination. These were good people, trained to protect others. The fact that they were outnumbered 1,000 to 1 did not change their duty. "Send a message to Fleet Command," Taman decided. "Tell them we're responding to the Altarian distress call. Request immediate backup." "Sir," said Weapons Specialist Dong Hyun. "Even with backup, this could be a suicide mission." Taman turned to face his crew. 20,000 innocent people are about to die. They called for help. "We're going to answer." The bridge erupted in activity. Engineers worked to prepare the ship's weapons. Marines checked their equipment. Medical staff prepared for casualties. Everyone knew the odds were terrible, but nobody suggested turning away. As the Indomitable changed course toward Kepler 442b, Taman sent his own message across human communication networks. "Any ship that could reach the system in time should come." The Altarians needed help, and humans did not abandon people who called for rescue. In the cargo bay, Sergeant Jiwoo gathered her Marines. These men and women had fought in dozens of battles, but never against something like the Vex swarm. "Listen up," she told them. "We're going into a fight we probably can't win. The enemy has more ships, more soldiers, and they don't feel fear or pain. But they made one mistake. They attacked innocent people and asked for help. That's what we do best." The Marines nodded. They cleaned their rifles and checked their armor. Some wrote letters home just in case. Others sat quietly and thought about the families they were trying to save. Down in the engine room, Hyunsik pushed the ship's reactor to its limits. The Indomitable had never traveled so fast. Metal groaned under the stress, but it held together. Human engineering was tough, built to survive the worst conditions space could offer. On the bridge, So-Young kept listening to emergency broadcasts from the Alterian colony. The situation was getting worse by the hour. More Vex ships kept arriving. The colony's shields were almost gone. "Captain," she reported, "we're getting updates from the colony. They estimate 12 hours before the shields fail completely." "We'll be there in 16 hours, Taemin said grimly. "That might be too late." Taemin gripped the arms of his chair. 16 hours. By the time they arrived, there might be nothing left to save. But they had to try. Someone had called for help, and humans always answered. In her command center, Yuna watched the shield readings drop, lower and lower. She had sent her message hours ago, but received no response. Perhaps no one had heard it. Perhaps no one cared about a small colony of artists and poets. She looked out at her city, where Alterian families huddled in their homes and waited for the end. Children who should have been learning to paint were instead learning to hide. Adults who should have been composing songs were instead saying goodbye. "Keep broadcasting," she told her assistant. "Someone might still hear us." Neither of them knew that in the darkness between stars, a human warship was racing toward them at impossible speed. Neither of them knew that the most dangerous species in the galaxy had heard their cry for help and decided to answer it. The Vex were about to learn why humans were quietly feared by every aggressive race in known space. The Indomitable dropped out of hyperspace like a metal comet, its engines glowing white-hot from the emergency burn. Captain Taemin stared at the scene before him and felt his blood turn cold. The planet Kepler 442b was surrounded by a cloud of dark ships that moved like living things. Hundreds of them, maybe more than 1,000. "My God," whispered Communications Officer So-Young. "There are so many." The Vex bioships looked nothing like human vessels. They were grown rather than built, with curved hulls that pulsed like heartbeats. Some were as small as fighters, others as large as city blocks. All of them were colored the deep red of dried blood. "Get me a scan of the planet," Taemin ordered. "Scanning now, sir," reported the sensor operator. "I'm reading massive damage to the surface. Multiple cities are burning. The colony's main shield is down to 12%. Through the bridge windows, they could see flashes of green light as Vex ships fired their acid weapons at the planet below. Each shot ate through buildings like they were made of paper. "Captain, I'm getting a signal from the planet," So-Young announced. "It's the Alterian administrator. Put her through." The main screen flickered to life, showing Yuna's face. The Alterian looked exhausted and scared. Behind her, alarms were ringing and people were running. "Unknown ship, please identify yourself," she said. "Are you here to help us?" "This is Captain Taemin of the human vessel Indomitable," he replied. "We received your distress call. We're here to get you out." Yuna's large eyes went wide. "Human, I have heard of your species, but you are so far from your territory. You came all this way for us?" "That's what we do," Taemin said simply. "How many people do you have left?" 15,000 in the underground shelters. Maybe 5,000 more scattered in the countryside. But Captain, you must understand. There are too many Vex ships. They have been arriving all day. Your one ship cannot fight them all." Taemin looked at the massive enemy fleet on his tactical display. She was right. One human ship against 1,000 Vex vessels was impossible odds. Any sane commander would retreat and call for a full fleet. But the Alterians did not have time for sanity. "We'll figure something out," he told her. "Keep your people in the shelters. We're coming to get you." Elder Cathara, the oldest Alterian on the planet, appeared next to Yuna on the screen. His ancient face was full of sadness. "Captain Taemin," he said, "your courage honors us, but I must tell you the truth. The Vex have destroyed 3 other colonies in our system. They are not raiders, they are devourers. They consume everything organic and use it to grow more ships, more soldiers. Nothing stops them." "We'll see about that," Taemin said. He ended the transmission and turned to his crew. "Red alert. All hands to battle stations." The bridge came alive with activity. Weapons specialist Dong-hyun powered up the ship's arsenal, railguns that could punch through solid rock, plasma torpedoes designed to crack asteroids, and missile pods loaded with nuclear warheads. "Sir," reported the tactical officer, "the Vex have noticed us. 3 squadrons breaking off from the main group." On the screen, 30 Vex fighters turned toward the Indomitable. They moved in perfect formation like a school of deadly fish. "They want to see what we're made of," Taemin said. "Show them." Dong-hyun, fire when ready. The human ship's first salvo lit up space like a miniature sun. Railgun rounds moving at a significant fraction of light speed tore through the lead Vex fighters. The creatures inside never knew what hit them. Their bioships simply came apart in clouds of green fluid and shattered chitin. "Direct hits on 12 targets," Dong-hyun reported with grim satisfaction. They're not expecting kinetic weapons moving this fast. The surviving Vex fighters spread out and began their attack run. Green acid bolts lanced through space toward the Indomitable. Most missed, but several struck the ship's armor. Where they hit, the metal began to smoke and dissolve. "Hull breach on Deck 7, called damage control. Sealing now." "Their acid eats through our armor," observed Chief Engineer Hyun-sik. "We can't trade shots with them for long." "Then we won't," Taemin decided. "Helm, take us into the middle of their formation. Full speed." The bridge crew looked at him like he had gone insane. Flying into the enemy fleet was suicide. But Taemin had fought pirates for years, and he knew something about desperate tactics. The Indomitable accelerated toward the main Vex fleet. More fighters moved to intercept, firing streams of acid at the approaching human ship. But the vessel was moving too fast and changing direction too often. Most of the shots missed. "Now," Taemin ordered. Dong-hyun triggered every weapon at once. Railgun rounds, plasma torpedoes, and nuclear missiles erupted from the Indomitable in all directions. The weapons were designed to fight other human ships in open space. But against the tightly packed Vex formation, they were devastating. Dozens of bioships exploded in balls of green fire. Others spun away with massive holes torn through their hulls. The perfect formation collapsed into chaos as damaged ships collided with healthy ones. On the planet below, Yuna watched the impossible sight through her command center's main viewer. One small human ship was cutting through the Vex fleet like a knife through soft fruit. "How are they doing this?" she asked her assistant. "The Vex destroyed our entire defense force in minutes." Elder Kithara studied the tactical display with ancient eyes. "Look at how they move," he said slowly. "The humans are not just fighting, they are hunting. They use the Vex formations against them. They turn their own numbers into a weakness." Above the planet, Marine Sergeant Jiwoo was preparing for the most dangerous mission of her career. Her squad was loading into boarding pods, small vessels designed to punch through enemy hulls and deliver troops directly into hostile ships. "Listen up," she told her Marines. "The Vex ships are organic. That means they can heal damage and adapt to our weapons. We need to hit them fast and hard, target the vital organs." "How do we know where the vital organs are?" asked Corporal Minho. "We'll figure it out when we get there," Jiwoo replied. It was not much of a plan, but Marines were used to improvising. The boarding pods launched from the Indomitable like bullets from a gun. They streaked across space toward the largest Vex bioship, a massive creature that pulsed with veins of green light. The pods punched through the ship's living hull with shaped charges. Marines poured through the breach into an alien nightmare. The corridors were not built. They were grown with walls that oozed moisture and floors that felt soft underfoot. "Contacts ahead," called one Marine. "Multiple hostiles." The Vex warriors were nothing like the gentle Alterians. They stood 8 feet tall on 4 legs with arms that ended in razor-sharp claws. Their heads were triangular, filled with rows of needle teeth. Worst of all, they moved with perfect coordination, sharing information through some kind of hive mind. The first exchange of gunfire lit up the alien corridor. Human bullets punched through Vex chitin, while alien claws sparked off marine armor. But the humans had one advantage. They fought as individuals, making decisions too fast for the hive mind to predict. Jiwoo led her squad deeper into the ship, following the thickest nerve cables toward what had to be the brain. Behind them, more boarding pods delivered additional Marines to other Vex vessels. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Taemin watched his people fight impossible odds in the depths of alien ships. Each Marine was worth a dozen Vex warriors in close combat, but there were always more enemies. "Captain," So-young called out, "I'm getting reports from other human ships. Admiral Kyung-ho's 3rd Fleet is 3 hours out." "Tell them to hurry," Taemin replied, watching another Vex squadron close in on his ship. "I don't think we can hold out much longer." But even as he said it, he knew they would keep fighting. The Alterians had called for help, and humans did not abandon people who needed rescue. Not ever. Down in the alien ship, Jiwoo's squad found the brain chamber. a massive organ that pulsed with electric activity. Without hesitation, she armed every grenade she carried. "For the innocents," she said, and threw them all at once. The explosion tore the hive mind apart, and the massive bioship began to die. The dying Vex bioship fell toward the planet like a wounded whale, its massive bulk trailing green fire. Inside the creature, Sergeant Jiwoo and her Marines fought their way back to the breach as the alien corridors collapsed around them. The hive mind's death scream echoed through space, reaching every Vex ship in the system. Captain Taemin watched the tactical display as the enemy fleet's perfect coordination suddenly broke apart. Ships that had moved like a single organism now wandered in confusion, bumping into each other and firing randomly. "Sir, the Vex formation is falling apart," reported the tactical officer. "It's like they lost their central command." "That's exactly what happened," said Chief Engineer Hyun-sik, studying his sensors. "These bioships are connected by some kind of neural network. When Jiwoo destroyed that brain chip, she cut the connection. But their victory was short-lived. Even as the immediate Vex forces struggled with confusion, new contacts appeared on the edge of the system. Dozens of them, then hundreds. Fresh Vex ships arriving from deep space drawn by the distress signals of their dying kin. "Captain," So-young called from her station, "I'm counting over 300 new Vex vessels. They're organizing into attack formations." Taemin felt his heart sink. They had barely survived the first wave with one ship. 300 fresh enemies would overwhelm them in minutes. The Indomitable's hull was already scarred with acid burns, and they were down to 60% ammunition. "Message from the planet," So-young continued. "Administrator Yuna wants to speak with you." Yuna's face appeared on the main screen. Behind her, Alterian civilians were loading into transport ships trying to evacuate before the new Vex wave arrived. "Captain Taemin," she said, "you have given us hope when we had none. Your people fight like legends. But these new ships, there are too many. You must save your crew and leave us." "We're not leaving anyone behind," Taemin replied firmly. "How many people still need evacuation?" 12,000, Yuna answered. "But our transport ships are too slow. The Vex will catch them before they reach the jump point." Elder Cathara appeared beside her, his ancient face filled with wonder. "Captain, in all our history, we have never seen such courage. You came to save strangers, knowing you would probably die. This is why the galaxy speaks of humans in whispers." "What do you mean?" Taemin asked. "The peaceful races share stories," Kithara explained. "We know about the human ship that fought off raiders to protect a Centauri medical station. We know about the human colony that adopted 10,000 war orphans from 6 different species. We know that when good people call for help, humans come running." Before Taemin could respond, the bridge alarms started screaming. New contacts were appearing on sensors, but these were not Vex ships. "Sir," called the sensor operator, "I'm reading multiple hyperspace signatures. Human ships, lots of them." The space around Kepler 442b suddenly filled with human warships. Admiral Kyung-ho's Third Fleet had arrived in force, 47 vessels ranging from fast destroyers to massive battleships. At their head flew the flagship Defiant, bristling with enough weapons to glass a continent. "Indomitable, this is Admiral Kyung-ho," came a voice over the communications channel. "Sorry we're late to the party. We brought some friends." The relief on the bridge was overwhelming. Communications officer So-young wiped tears from her eyes. Weapons specialist Dong-hyun actually cheered. Even Captain Taemin allowed himself a small smile. "Admiral, the Vex have fresh reinforcements incoming," Taemin reported. "At least 300 ships." "We saw them on our way in," Kyung-ho replied calmly. "Interesting biotechnology, but they make the same mistake as every hive mind species. They think too much alike." As if to prove his point, the human fleet spread out into a formation that looked completely random. Ships scattered in all directions, some heading for the planet, others moving toward the incoming Vex forces, still others taking positions that made no tactical sense. "What are they doing?" asked the tactical officer, confused by the chaotic deployment. "Watch and learn," Taemin said. He had served under Kyung-ho before and knew the man was brilliant. The Vex reinforcements moved in perfect order, their bioships forming precise attack formations as they approached the human fleet. Their hive mind calculated the optimal approach, accounting for human weapons range and defensive positions. It was a flawless plan that should have guaranteed victory. That was when the trap closed. The randomly scattered human ships suddenly revealed their true purpose. Captain Boram's destroyer squadron activated gravity mines they had secretly deployed, creating invisible walls that forced the Vex fleet into narrow corridors. Commander Jae Sung's fighters emerged from the shadow of asteroids, their missiles already locked onto Vex command ships. Engineer Wu Jin's specialized weapons, developed from captured Vex biosamples, proved devastatingly effective. Sonic torpedoes that disrupted the creature's nervous systems, plasma bolts tuned to burn through their specific type of organic armor, and virus bombs that turned their own healing abilities against them. The Vex formation, so perfect moments before, became a death trap. Ships crashed into gravity barriers they could not see. Fighters found themselves surrounded by human vessels that had seemed far away. Command ships exploded as experimental weapons exploited weaknesses in their biology that only human science could have discovered. "Impossible," whispered the tactical officer, watching the slaughter on his screens. "How did they know exactly where the Vex would go?" "Humans are predators," Elder Cathara said from the planet below, his voice full of awe. "We Alterians create art, the Vex create destruction. But humans create victory from nothing." Down on the planet, Dr. Mi Young worked frantically to treat wounded Alterians in the evacuation centers. The gentle aliens had injuries unlike anything she had seen. Acid burns that ate through tissue, claw marks that never stopped bleeding, and psychological trauma from witnessing their peaceful world turned into a battleground. As she worked, one of her patients, a young Alterian child, grabbed her hand with surprising strength. "Are you really human?" the child asked in broken standard. "Yes, I am," Mi Young replied gently. "My grandmother says humans are the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. But you're helping us," Mi Young smiled sadly. "We're only dangerous to those who hurt innocent people." The space battle continued above them. Human ships used tactics that would have seemed insane to any other species. Destroyer captains rammed bioships twice their size, timing the collision perfectly to deliver nuclear warheads directly into the enemy's vital organs. Fighter pilots performed suicide runs that no sane pilot would attempt, somehow surviving impossible odds through skill and pure determination. But it was the human systematic approach that truly terrified the Vex. Every attack was recorded, every enemy weakness cataloged and shared instantly across the fleet. When one ship discovered that Vex biohulls were vulnerable to specific frequencies of plasma, every human vessel adjusted their weapons accordingly within minutes. The Vex had faced many enemies in their long expansion across the galaxy. They had fought warrior races that were stronger, scientists that were smarter, and civilizations that had better technology. But they had never faced a species that learned so quickly and adapted so ruthlessly. Pilot Dalho volunteered for the most dangerous mission of the battle, a reconnaissance flight through the heart of the Vex fleet to gather intelligence on their command structure. His fighter was fast, but not fast enough to outrun everything the enemy could throw at him. "Dalho, you don't have to do this," his squadron leader called over the radio. "It's a suicide run. Someone needs to get that intel," Dalho replied, checking his weapons one final time. "These people called for help. We don't let them down." His fighter streaked through the enemy formation like a silver dart, dodging acid bolts and plasma streams. His cameras recorded everything: ship designs, weapon configurations, and most importantly, the location of what appeared to be a massive command vessel hidden behind the main fleet. Dalho's fighter took hit after hit as he transmitted the data back to the fleet. His engines were failing, his life support was damaged, but he had gotten the information they needed. "Package delivered," he reported calmly as his ship finally exploded in a ball of fire. Admiral Kyung-ho received the intelligence and immediately began planning an assault on the Vex command ship. If they could cut the head off the snake, the entire invasion force would collapse. "All ships, this is Kyung-ho," he broadcast. "We have one shot at ending this. Follow my lead." The human fleet began moving toward the massive bioship that served as the Vex command center. It was larger than anything they had faced before, a living fortress that pulsed with malevolent intelligence. But the humans were no longer the desperate rescuers who had arrived hours earlier. They were a pack of predators who had tasted blood and found their prey. The Vex command ship was a nightmare made flesh. It stretched nearly 10 kilometers from end to end, its surface covered in pulsing veins and breathing holes that opened and closed like wounds. Smaller bioships clung to its sides like parasites, feeding from tubes that leaked green fluid into space. Intelligence Officer Chan Wu studied the captured Vex warrior in the Indomitable's holding cell. The creature was unlike anything in human experience. Part insect, part machine, part something else entirely. Its triangular head twitched constantly as if listening to voices only it could hear. "Can you understand me?" Chan Wu asked through the cell's speaker system. The Vex warrior's compound eyes focused on him. When it spoke, the voice was like grinding metal mixed with the sound of breaking glass. "Human flesh," it said in broken standard. "You delay the inevitable. The deep hunger comes. All organic matter will feed the swarm." "What is the deep hunger?" Chan Wu pressed. The creature's entire body shuddered. "Ancient enemy. Sleeps in the galactic core. We flee its awakening. We must grow strong. We must consume everything." Chan Wu felt a chill run down his spine. "You're running from something?" "The deep hunger devours stars themselves. Only the strongest swarms survive its feeding. We prepare, we grow, we become worthy prey, or we become food." Through the cell's window, Chan Wu could see the massive command ship growing larger as the human fleet approached. If the Vex were fleeing from something even worse, what did that say about what was coming? On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Taemin received Chan Wu's report with growing concern. "So the Vex aren't just raiders. They're refugees. Refugees who decided to become the monster they're running from," Admiral Kyung-ho added over the communications link. "That doesn't change what they've done here." Tactical Officer Yoon-ji was coordinating the planet-wide evacuation, while simultaneously planning the assault on the command ship. Her screens showed transport ships loading desperate Alterian families, while human fighters provided cover against Vex stragglers. "Admiral, evacuation is at 60%, she reported. "We need another 2 hours to get everyone off planet." "We might not have 2 hours, Kyung-ho replied. "That command ship is powering up some kind of weapon. Long-range sensors show massive energy building in its core." Pilot Dalho's sacrifice had revealed more than just the command ship's location. His final transmission included data about a weapon system that seemed designed to crack planetary surfaces. If the Vex activated it, the Alterian evacuation would become meaningless. Medic Sung-min was working around the clock in the refugee ships, treating Alterians who had never experienced violence before this day. Their peaceful culture had no words for the trauma they were experiencing. Many simply stared into space, unable to process what had happened to their world. "Doctor," called one of his nurses, "this child hasn't spoken since we brought her aboard. She just keeps drawing the same picture." Sung-min looked at the drawing. It showed a small figure surrounded by large dark shapes with claws and teeth, but in the corner tiny bright objects fought against the darkness. "She's drawing the battle," he realized. "The bright spots are our ships." The child looked up at him with large frightened eyes. "Are the bright ones winning?" she asked in a whisper. "Yes," Sung-min told her gently. "The bright ones always win when they fight for good people." Above them, the space battle reached its climax. The human fleet had formed a spearhead formation aimed directly at the command ship's most vulnerable point. Cluster of nerve bundles near what appeared to be its brain. Commander Haewon led the assault from her heavy cruiser. Her ship's experimental weapons, designed specifically to fight bioships, tore through the command vessel's outer defenses. Behind her, dozens of other human ships added their firepower to the attack. "Target the neural clusters," she ordered her weapons officer. "Make every shot count." The command ship fought back with weapons that seemed to bend reality itself. Energy beams that existed in dimensions humans had no names for lashed out at the attacking fleet. One destroyer simply vanished, folded into space so thoroughly that not even debris remained. But the humans pressed their attack. Ship after ship dove toward the massive biovessel, trading their lives for critical hits on its structure. They moved with a coordination that confused the Vex hive mind. Not the perfect unity of shared consciousness, but the chaotic harmony of individuals working toward a common goal. On the planet below, Administrator Yuna watched the battle through her command center's main viewer. Elder Kethara stood beside her, his ancient face reflecting the lights of the space battle. "I have lived for 300 years, he said quietly. "I have seen empires rise and fall, but I have never seen anything like this." "What do you mean?" Yuna asked. "The humans fight like they have already won. Every other species fights to survive. Humans fight to protect. Do you see the difference?" Yuna studied the tactical display, watching human ships position themselves between the Vex fleet and the evacuation transports. They were not just attacking the enemy, they were actively shielding the refugees even when it put them in greater danger. They came here to save strangers, she whispered. They risk everything for people they never met. In the depths of the command ship, something ancient stirred. The deep hunger that the Vex feared was not just a destroyer of worlds, it was a consumer of consciousness itself. And the psychic screams of the dying Vex fleet had caught its attention. The command ship's biocomputer, processing millions of years of stored data, came to a terrifying conclusion. The humans were not just another species to be consumed. They were something new, something the deep hunger had never encountered before. A species that fought not for territory or resources, but for abstract concepts like justice and compassion. A species that became more dangerous when protecting others than when protecting themselves. A species that could turn any odds, no matter how impossible, into a winnable fight through sheer determination. Engineer Wu Jin detected the energy spike first. Admiral, the command ship is transmitting something. High energy burst toward the galactic core. A distress signal? Admiral Kyung-ho asked. No, sir. It's more like a warning. The transmission reached across thousands of light years in seconds, carried by technology the humans did not understand. In the dark spaces between stars, something vast and hungry received the message and began to turn its attention toward the outer rim. But for now, the immediate threat was the command ship itself. Its planet-cracking weapon was almost ready to fire, and the Alterian evacuation was still incomplete. All ships, this is Kyung-ho, the Admiral broadcast. Emergency assault pattern. We need to stop that weapon before it charges. The human fleet abandoned all defensive positions and threw themselves at the command ship in one final, desperate attack. They had learned something important about the Vex during the battle. The creature's perfect coordination was also their greatest weakness. They could not adapt quickly enough to truly chaotic tactics, so the humans gave them chaos. Ships attacked from every direction simultaneously. Fighters used ramming speeds to deliver nuclear warheads directly into bioship hulls. Marines boarded enemy vessels with nothing but rifles and determination, fighting through alien corridors to reach vital systems. Captain Taemin led his own ship directly toward the command ship's main weapon, his hull glowing red from enemy fire. This is indomitable. We're going in. Taemin, that's suicide, Admiral Kyung-ho warned. No, sir, Taemin replied calmly. That's Tuesday. The indomitable, scarred and bleeding atmosphere from a dozen holes punched through the command ship's defenses and buried itself deep in the creature's body. Taemin's crew fought their way through alien corridors toward the weapons control center, leaving a trail of human courage and Vex corpses behind them. They reached the control room just as the planet-cracking weapon began its final charge sequence. The massive gun was already turning toward Kepler 442b, preparing to split the world in half. Dong-hyun, can you stop it? Taemin asked his weapons specialist. Dong-hyun studied the alien controls, his hands already moving to disable the massive weapon. Give me 60 seconds, Captain. Outside, the last Alterian transport lifted off from the planet's surface, carrying the final group of refugees to safety. The evacuation was complete, but the weapon was still charging. 30 seconds, Dong-hyun reported, sweat beading on his forehead as he worked to understand the biomechanical systems. Through the command room's organic windows, they could see human ships still fighting against impossible odds. Each one was outnumbered, outgunned, and damaged, but none of them had retreated. 10 seconds, Dong-hyun called. The weapon's charging sequence reached 99%. Energy that could crack a moon focused on the defenseless planet below. Got it, Dong-hyun shouted, his hands slamming down on what he hoped was the right control. The weapon powered down, its energy dissipating harmlessly into space. The command ship, mortally wounded by the human assault, began to break apart around them. But even as they won this battle, Captain Taemin knew the war was far from over. Somewhere in the dark between stars, something much worse than the Vex had received their warning signal and was beginning to stir. The Vex command ship died like a living thing, its massive hull shuddering and splitting as vital systems failed one by one. Captain Taemin and his crew fought their way back through collapsing corridors while the bio-vessel tore itself apart around them. Green blood, or whatever passed for blood in the alien creature, sprayed from ruptured vessels in the walls. Move, 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 Sergeant Ji-woo shouted, leading the evacuation back to their boarding pod. Behind them, the ship's death screams echoed through passages that pulsed like a dying heart. They reached their pod just as the command ship's spine snapped in half. The small human vessel launched into space, carrying the strike team away from the disintegrating biofortress. All around them, the Vex fleet was coming apart. With their central command destroyed, the individual bioships could no longer coordinate their attacks. Some fled toward the edge of the system. Others turned on each other, their damaged hive minds unable to distinguish friend from foe. A few simply shut down completely, drifting in space like dead whales. On the bridge of the flagship Defiant, Admiral Kyung-ho watched the enemy retreat with grim satisfaction. The immediate threat was over, but his sensors were picking up disturbing readings from the galactic core. Commander Haewon, report, he called to his science officer. Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures from the deep galaxy, she replied, studying her screens with growing concern. Whatever the Vex were running from, it's starting to move. Commander Haewon had spent months studying captured Vex technology, trying to understand how their bioships worked. What she had learned chilled her to the bone. The creatures were not just raiders. They were the advanced scouts of something far worse. Admiral, I think I know what the deep hunger is, she said quietly. The Vex biocomputers contain fragments of memory going back millions of years. They show images of entire star system disappearing. Disappearing how? Not destroyed, consumed. Stars, planets, everything. Just gone, leaving empty space behind. The implications hit Admiral Kyung-ho like a physical blow. If something that powerful was heading toward the outer rim, the small human fleet would be like ants trying to stop a flood. Down on the planet's surface, Administrator Yuna stood in the ruins of her capital city. The Vex had been driven off, but New Haven was a smoking wasteland. Centuries of Alterian art and culture had been destroyed in a single day. Elder Cathara walked beside her through the rubble, his ancient staff tapping against broken stones. The gardens can be replanted, he said gently. The libraries can be rebuilt. Our people are alive, and that is what matters. Because of the humans, Yuna replied. They came from nowhere to save strangers. Why would they do such a thing? Perhaps, Cathara said thoughtfully. That is why the galaxy fears them. Not because they are cruel, but because they are unpredictable. Who else would fight impossible odds for people they never met? Above them, human ships were landing to begin evacuation operations. Dr. Mi Young led the medical teams that rushed to help injured Alterians. Her gentle hands treated wounds with the same skill that had guided human weapons in battle. Doctor, why did your people come? Asked one of her patients, a young Alterian artist whose painting hand had been mangled by Vex claws. Mi Young carefully bandaged the wounded appendage. Because you called for help, she said simply. That's what good people do for each other. But we are not your people. We are not even the same species. That doesn't matter to humans. When someone needs help, we help. When someone is in danger, we protect them. It's just who we are. In the depths of space, the last surviving Vex ships gathered around a massive biovessel that served as their mobile hive. The Queen Mind, the collective consciousness that guided their species, was trying to process what had happened at Kepler 442b. The humans had fought with tactics the Vex could not predict. They moved like individuals but coordinated like a hive mind. They sacrificed themselves for others without hesitation, but did so in ways that maximized damage to their enemies. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to become more dangerous when protecting others than when protecting themselves. Alert the deep hunger, the Queen Mind decided. These humans are not like other organic species. They are unpredictable. The warning signal raced across the galaxy at faster than light speeds, carrying with it detailed scans of human tactics, technology, and psychology. In the dark spaces between stars, something vast and ancient received the message with interest. The deep hunger had consumed 1,000 civilizations over the eons. It had devoured warrior races, scientific empires, and hive minds that spanned entire sectors. But it had never encountered a species like humanity, beings who fought not for survival or dominance, but for abstract concepts like justice and compassion. Back at Kepler 442b, the human fleet was preparing to escort the Alterian refugees to safety. Admiral Kyung-ho had identified a suitable planet in the Centauri system where the gentle aliens could rebuild their civilization. Admiral, reported Communications Officer So Young from the Indomitable, we're receiving a transmission from the Alterian government. They want to speak with you directly. Prime Minister Veltar appeared on the main screen, his feathered head bowed in respect. Behind him stood representatives from dozens of peaceful species. The Centauri healers, the Delphine philosophers, the crystalline ethereals who communicated through music. Admiral Kyung-ho, Veltar said formally, on behalf of all peaceful species in known space, we thank you for what you have done here. The humans have shown us that there are still those who will fight for justice. We just did what needed to be done, Kyung-ho replied uncomfortably. He had never been good at speeches. That is exactly why you are so remarkable, Veltar continued. Every other species in the galaxy has heard of the human who stopped a pirate fleet to save a medical station. We know about the human colony that adopted 10,000 war orphans. We know about the human scientists who gave their lives to cure the Rigel plague. You see injustice and you stop it. You see suffering and you end it. This is why the aggressive races fear you. Elder Cathara stepped forward on the screen. We would like to propose an alliance. Not a military pact, but something deeper. Let the peaceful species of the galaxy know that if they call for help, humans will answer. We already do that, Admiral Kyung-ho pointed out. Yes, but now the galaxy will know it officially. When predators threaten the innocent, they will know that humanity stands ready to hunt the hunters. The formal alliance was signed aboard the Defiant, with representatives from 37 peaceful species. It was not a treaty of conquest or trade, but something unprecedented in galactic history, a promise to protect those who could not protect themselves. As the ceremony concluded, Commander Hae-Wan pulled Admiral Kyung-ho aside. Sir, we need to discuss the deep hunger situation. My analysis suggests we have perhaps 6 months before it reaches this sector. How many ships would we need to stop something that can consume star systems? Sir, I don't think any number of ships would be enough, but... She paused, studying her data. The Vex were afraid of it because they think like a hive mind. They see the deep hunger as an unstoppable force. But humans don't think like that. What do you mean? We don't see unstoppable forces. We see problems that haven't been solved yet. The Vex ran from this thing for millions of years. But humans would try to fight it. Admiral Kyung-ho considered this. And you think that might make a difference? Sir, 3 hours ago we were 1 ship against 1,000 enemies. Now we're here planning the next phase of operations. If humans can turn impossible odds into victory once, maybe we can do it again. As the human fleet prepared to depart Kepler 442b, Captain Taman received a final message from Administrator Yuna. She stood in the ruins of her city, but her voice was filled with hope rather than despair. Captain Taman, we will rebuild our world. We will paint new pictures and grow new gardens. And we will remember that when we called for help in our darkest hour, the most dangerous beings in the galaxy came to save us. We're not dangerous to good people, Taman replied. That is exactly what makes you so dangerous to bad ones, Yuna said with something that might have been a smile. Go well, human. The galaxy is safer because you exist. The human fleet jumped to hyperspace carrying the Alterian refugees toward their new home. Behind them, the wounded planet began the long process of healing. Ahead of them, somewhere in the dark between stars, something ancient and hungry had noticed their small blue world and was beginning to turn its terrible attention toward Earth. But Admiral Kyung-ho was not worried. The deep hunger might be older and more powerful than humanity. It might be able to consume entire solar systems. But it had made one critical mistake. It had threatened innocent people within range of humans who could help. And humans always answered when good people called for rescue. The galaxy was about to learn why the most dangerous predators were the ones who chose to protect instead of prey. When the deep hunger finally arrived, it would face something no force in the universe had ever successfully opposed. Humans who had something to defend. The real war was just beginning.